All right, here we go. My name is Jeff K, and you're listening to episode 322 of the world-famous West Virginia Surf Report podcast. If all goes well, we're leaving on Friday for a little quickie visit to Myrtle Beach. We need a little fix. We need some beach. We need some, not only the beach, more importantly, we need a getaway. We need to check out from this world. Enter a parallel universe where money is no object. There are no concerns. There's no, crushing anxiety. It's just look out the window at the ocean, eat great food, drink great beer, and just be away from it all. That's what we need. That's what we're craving, and we have it scheduled. We're leaving Friday. We're going to have to leave the house like at 6 a.m., which is, man, I don't know about that. That is going to be a hardship on me. I might as well just stay up, right? What time I have to get up? At 4? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that's when I go to bed, you know? Anyway, I'll make it happen, and it'll work. Don't worry about it. I don't want you guys to concern yourself with that. You know, I'll somehow make it happen. And we're going to fly down there, and we're going to be there, you know. We're going to be there early in the morning. We're going to head over to the Blueberry Grill and have breakfast. We're going to be in Myrtle Beach early enough in the day that we can have breakfast. What do you think about that shit? And then we're going to have the whole day. We're going to have we're getting there very early in the morning, you know, on our first day, and then we're leaving at like 5 o'clock on the last day. So it's only 3 nights, but it's more than just, you know, 3 days. It's more than just, you know, it's a pretty good chunk of time. 3 nights, and we'll be back to harsh reality. But that's Friday. If nothing crazy happens between now and then, which is obviously and definitely without doubt possible. I mean, we've been going back and forth. Should we go? Should we not go? There's chaos going on here at the House of K. All right, and I'm at no liberty to talk about it. Everything's fine, I guess. I don't know. No, it's not really fine, but things are quiet right now. Let's just put it that way. And if all goes well, we're leaving Friday morning, and we need it. God knows we need it. Let me take a hit off this water. Hang on a second. Don't you love that when people do that? You know what else irritates me? Is when people inject the word or the phrase, with that being said, into their emails. Some people say it. I saw one the other day from this dude. It said the first, it's like it was back-to-back sentences. With that being said, he finished that, and then with that being said, like, what is that? Why is that being overused now? I see it. I see it more now. I mean, people always used it, and I don't know if it's one of those little, like, you know, like when I say, you know, in this thing, like I just now did. I try not to do that, but it's hard. But, you know, I don't know. It's one of those little quirks that people inject. They feel like they have the need to inject. With that being said, they send an email and say, I'm going to be out tomorrow on PTO. With that being said, I'll be back the following day. I'm like, why? Why do you have to add that? Why does that have to be in there? I see it all the time, and every time I see it, it pops out at me. It bugs me. I pay attention to shit like that. It drives me insane. I don't know why, but I do. I pay attention to the way the way people talk, the phrases people use. and it drives me nuts. All that like corporate speak, it drives me crazy. I remember I used to be in this room where all the supervisors shared. It was like a big room. We were all in there together, and I would like just rant about all this stupid ass corporate shit. So what are you guys talking that way for? There's not two languages. There's not a language outside of here and a language inside of here. I was like, they all thought I was insane. But all that shit, all that low-hanging fruit and running up the flagpole, all that shit. Like, what the hell are you people talking about? Bubble it up. Yeah, you need to bubble that up. You really do. It has to be bubbled up and, what the? Bubble up? What the hell is that? People don't talk like that. That's not a real phrase. Anyway, I make myself insane because I pay attention to all this shit. And for some reason, I zero in on it and I can't stop myself. It's the way my brain works. It makes me crazy. And everybody's saying, with that being said, like, why? What is the point of putting that phrase ever? Why is that ever necessary to say that? Why? Why? All right, enough stuff. The other day I was thinking about something. I can't remember. Was I talking? I think I was talking. I don't remember the source of this thing, but I was talking. I think it feels like I was talking to my brother, but I could be wrong. Talking to my brother or talking to Steve. And we're talking about those little triangle windows in cars. Are you old enough to remember that? It's like a little wing, like a little vent type thing. It would be in a car window on the passenger and the driver's side. And you could just it was like a little triangle in the corner of the window, and you could swing it open. It would so air could blow in and circulate through. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember those things? And it had a little latch that you could slide and lock it in place, or you could swing it open. It's like a little triangle vent window. Do you know what I'm talking about? This is like some shit from the 70s. I feel like I've talked about this before, but it feels like I've lived in two different worlds. It feels like I've lived in two different eras. And I'm not that old, but I'm old. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like I was born at a time where I lived in an era that is very distinct, and then I've lived in a second era which is also distinct, and it's like two different worlds, and it's a great thing. I feel like it's a great privilege to have lived in two different eras. You know what I mean? And those little vent windows, that's just something. I started talking about it. I was like, holy shit, I forgot about those things. I don't know why it popped into my head, but it's one of those things. It's from the 70s, 60s, probably 50s. I don't know, but I remember it from the 70s, and I totally forgot about. And I sat down and I jotted down some things that are kind of fairly obscure from the 70s, like when I was a kid. I don't really remember the 60s. I was around in the 60s, but I was some little shitty kid, like a little kid. Like some little kid. I don't remember the level of detail. I don't know why I said I was a shitty kid, but maybe it's possible. I have to ask my parents. But anyway, I was some little kid. Most of this stuff's from the 70s. That's when I had. That's when I was old enough to have actual memories, like real detailed memories. All right, so I jotted down some things. See if you remember any of this stuff. If you're old like me, old broken down old sack. People call me sir now. Oh, God, don't get me started. It makes me sick. Sir. I remember we had a black and white television. We had a black and white television when I was a kid in the living room. This wasn't a secondary TV. This was like in the living room. Our main TV was black and white, and you had to let it warm up. Do you remember this? Are you old enough to remember your TV? Like if something was coming on at 7, you wanted to watch it at 7, I don't know, like the Twilight Zone or whatever's coming on at 7 o'clock, you'd have to turn it on at make sure you turn it on at 6:55. I mean, don't turn it on exactly at 7 because you got to give it time to warm up. Like, what the hell? You have to warm up your TV? Isn't that bizarre? That's crazy. And also, when you turn it off, there'd be this little white dot right in the center of the screen, and it would stay there for 3 minutes. And we'd just sit there and watch it until it would get fainter and fainter, and then it would finally just disappear. You know what else I remember about when we first got cable TV, when cable TV first came to West Virginia, or at least our part of West Virginia, is they had a channel on there, and all it was a local channel. It was from Capital Cablevision, which is what we had, and all it was a camera that would slowly pan down a line. It had a clock, right? Like you could turn on that channel and there'd be like a clock, and it would slowly pan down. There'd be like a temperature, like a thermometer type thing. And there'd be like another one. I don't know. There's like different like gauges down the line. And then at the end, it would have like a list of movies that they would show on this channel. They're all we're talking ancient, like cowboy and Indians movies, westerns. These things are from like the 30s. They were like washed out. You could barely even make out images of the characters. It's like it had been left, like the film had been left out in the sun, And they would show these old westerns on there, and between the movies, when there was no movie, you could just turn it on, and look at the clock, the thermometer. Oh, it was mesmerizing TV. This is this is what I remember. This is what we had. We had nothing. I mean, it was terrible. We had this channel out of Cincinnati, which was awesome, but I'm not going to get into that. But I remember the clock channel, as we called it, and the little dot when you turn the TV off and it just slowly fade away. It was mesmerizing. You could just sit and get hypnotized by this thing, and you have to warm the TV up 5 minutes before the show comes on. I remember my mom ironing clothes, which I don't think too many people do except me. I iron, God, press, whatever you want to call it, shirts that I wear to work. But I don't think people iron too much anymore. Am I wrong? I don't think it's happened. Does that happen now? I don't know. I don't know what happens outside my house. I never hear anybody talking about ironing, but back in the day, that was a big part of it. And she had one of those big returnable like Pepsi bottles, and I think everybody's mom had one of these. See if you remember this shit. All right. It's like, they used to have those big, soft drink bottles, Pepsi, whatever, Coke, RC, whatever, and you would take them back for a deposit. When I was working at Fast Check, they had that. I mean, we'd have to go in, like we had a big basket by the door, and people would bring their returnables in and get credit. I don't know, like 40 cents or something off their next purchase. You get a deposit on the bottles, right? And we'd have to take them. The stock boys would have to take when the basket would fill up. We'd have to take it to the back room and separate it out. We'd have to make sure all the Pepsis were together, all the Cokes were together, and all the RCs were together. So that's where I learned, Dr. Pepper's Pepsi. I just like that. That stuff's hardwired in my head. I know exactly what each of the major ones. I'm not talking about the new stuff, but the stuff that was around back then. I know it's like hardwired in my head. I also learned how to tie a tie there. So many important things at Fast Check. But anyway, my mom and everybody else's mom, I think, had a empty Pepsi bottle, and she had this. It was like a nozzle. It was like a rubber nozzle that would fit over the top of it, and it was like it was made to look like a flower, and and you could sprinkle, and it had holes in it, And so she'd put water in the bottle. And it had this rubber nozzle on there. And she would use that and basically use it like a salt shaker and shake water onto like if she's ironing a shirt or whatever, she would sprinkle water on there and iron it out. You know what I'm saying? Do you remember that? How do I remember that? I asked my mom about that recently, and she goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody had that, you know." But I don't think most people remember that. I don't know. Maybe they do, but anyway, I can remember her having that bottle and shaking water on the shirts and pants or whatever she was ironing. Bizarre. All right, these are obscure '70s memories. 8-track tapes. I had an 8-track tape in. I think I had I don't know. I don't know if I had an 8-track tape in my car, a car that I owned, but we had 8-track tapes players in the family car, and I remember having had a stereo with an 8-track tape player, and I can remember my friend Mike having one that didn't work very well. It was like loose. The thing was like real loose. Like you put the tape in, and the thing was like you could wiggle it up and down. Something was askew with that thing. So you'd have to wedge. So Mike would have to wedge cardboard underneath. He'd have to put a big clump of cardboard underneath the 8-track tape and then wedge it in there so it wouldn't move up and down. And those things were a piece of shit. The 8 tracks. The things some of them would be. I mean, they would literally change tracks in the middle of a song. And when it changed tracks, it would go cha-chunk. I mean, it was real loud. It was unnerving. Like you'd be listening to a tape, and the thing would just go cha-chunk. Sometimes right in the middle of the song, it would split the song in half. Who would think that's a good idea? I mean, it's like the worst, you know? You're listening to a song, and it's manufactured so that right in the middle of it, thing just goes cha-chunk, and then there's a little bit of silence and it starts playing again. What a piece of shit, you know? Think about that. That's garbage, you know? It's like those 45. I had a 45 RPM, you know, like the little single records of when I was a kid. I bought it at Miller's Drugstore in Dunbar, and it was what was it? American Pie by Don McLean. And it was so long that it was on both sides of the record. The same song. It was one song, but it was on both sides of the record. So the thing would be playing, and it would just kind of fade down. And you'd have to go over to the record player, flip it over, and to listen to the rest of the song. What kind of trash is that? I mean, now everybody's worried about audiophile. Everything's got to sound beautiful and perfect and everything. We had 8-track tapes. You'd be listening to a Free Ride or whatever song you're listening to. The thing would be right in the middle of cha-chunk. You know? What kind of trash? You have to flip the record over right in the middle of the song to hear the other side. Hear the other song or the end of the song, the rest of oh God. So anyway, 8-track tapes. I had a bunch of them. I probably still have them down in the basement. I mean, those things were around. You know, those were not obscure. Everybody had them. Everybody used them. You know, I had Beatles records on 8 tracks. You know, I think they made some of that early punk stuff. I think you can find the Sex Pistols, you know. You can find Sex Pistols 8 tracks and the Clash, the first Clash album. That shit was around in the 70s. I don't know when it stopped. I mean, cassettes came on strong, and you know, 8 tracks were out the window because they're not any good. So cassettes eventually ruined everything for the 8-track world. But anyway, I lived I lived in 2 different worlds. And in that first world, 8-track tapes were pretty popular, even though they're not very good. You have to stuff cardboard underneath them to make them play right. We also had in television. That was our home video game console, and I never really was into that. I'm not really. I don't. You know what? I don't like games. Is that crazy? What do you think about that? I don't like. I've never really. I like baseball. I like playing baseball. I used to. I don't think I could do it anymore. I'd probably blow my back out and pants at the same time. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. But playing games, like board games and shit like that, never. I hate that. Like, I've been at parties, and people are like, how about we play whatever? What are those stupid games that people play at parties? Where, I don't know. There's like an easel involved. You know what I'm saying? Or you draw something. I don't know what these games are called. I'm like, I'm out. I'm like, they start playing that shit, I'm out the window or out the door, or any of that stuff. Like, any of those games. I don't like games. Even drinking games. I loved the drinking. I don't want to turn it into a game. I don't like any of that stuff. I never liked that. But I played a little bit of video games. We had in television, and we had. I'll tell you my three favorite. I think these are the ones I remember. These are my three favorite games on Intellivision. Night Stalker. Do you remember that one? That thing was great. It was fun. Burger Time. And my all-time favorite, Astro Smash. Those were the best. Those are the three best, right off the top of my head. Unless I'm forgetting one. But those are the three. We had a whole bunch of them. And we had skiing. We had one that had a bunch of sports games on it, I guess. It had skiing on there. It was ridiculous. The graphics were horrendous. But, Astro Smash was fun. And Burger Time was fun. And Night Stalker was perhaps... That one was probably the best one. But I liked Astro Smash. For some reason, I liked that one a lot. Anyway, we had that. And somebody actually broke into our house and stole our Intellivision game and all our cartridges. And my brother's new paper route collection money, and I don't know, feels like there was some other stuff stolen. And we never figured out who it was, although I have my theories. I have my theories, but I don't know. But anyway, we had that. We never had Atari, but we had Intellivision, and it was fun, especially the like I say, Night Stalker. Good times. Also, a bizarre memory, an obscure memory from the 70s. I don't know if you remember this crap. Do you remember Mexican jumping beans? They were like beans, apparently, that had like a worm in them or something. You get them warm, you hold them in your hand. You like hold them, put them in your hand and like put your hands together and get it as warm as you possibly can. And then they would jump around in the palm of your hand. Remember that? Mexican jumping beans? How about Big Mouth gum? It was like the size of almost like the size of a pack of cigarettes. Except it was just solid gum, bubble gum. They had apple flavor, grape, and I think just regular bubblegum flavor. It was perforated, and you're supposed to like break it into chunks, But we would stick the entire frickin' thing in our mouth. You could barely breathe. There's like slobber coming out of the corner of your mouth trying to get that thing under control. You put the whole thing in there all at once. It took you like 5 solid minutes. It was touch and go for like 5 solid minutes trying to get it under control. And it cost like a nickel or something. It was like a huge amount of gum. No wonder everybody's teeth are rotten from that era. God, that shit was pure sugar. And we just like stuff it in for some reason. I don't know. I say I don't like games, but I guess we were playing some kind of game there. Can you take on a whole a whole Big Mouth? I think that's what it's called. Big Mouth gum. That shit's ridiculous. I can't believe it. Let's see. Oh, another thing along the same lines. Do you remember cinnamon toothpicks? I'm telling you, lived in 2 different worlds. You'd go to the store, right? Go to the candy, check out the candy area, candy section, and they would have these little, like cellophane envelopes. And inside would be toothpicks that had been dipped in cinnamon oil. That was like a candy, like They sold it alongside candy. And so you'd put the toothpick in your mouth and just kind of suck on it, and it was like fiery hot. Do you remember this? Do you remember cinnamon toothpicks? Who came up with that? That is weird, man. But I used to eat those there. I didn't eat them, but I used to buy them and like suck all the cinnamon oil off of them and discard them into the gutter. You know. What else I got? Do you remember some kind of a gag called Morning Breeze? It was like some kind of it came in a bottle. Looked like a fancy perfume. It was called Morning Breeze. And it smelled like an atomic fart or something. It was a horrendous, pungent smell. It was, you would drop a little bit of that on the floor in a room, and it would clear the room out. And they sold it as in gag, like in toy store. There was a store in Dunbar called House of Toys. And they had this rack of magic tricks and shit like that. It had like fake ice cubes with like a roach inside of it. That kind of stuff. You could like put it in somebody's drink. Gags and this kind of stuff. They sold that Morning Breeze in there. That stuff was used and abused. I mean, all over town. People were always using that stuff. There's on YouTube. There's people, I think it's called liquid ass. I think they literally sell something that's very similar, if not exactly the same thing. It's called liquid ass. And there's a bunch of YouTube videos of people reacting to that. There's a couple of them that had me laughing so hard I had tears rolling down my cheeks. But maybe I'll find one. I'll put it on the Surf Report pod, so you can see one of them. But we had that. We had those. It was called Morning Breeze back in the day. And the last thing I have listed is typing class. When I was in high school, I took a typing class, and I was trying to pad my schedule. I think I might have talked about this before, but when I was a senior in high school, this was not in the 70s, but it was in the very early 80s. I was padding my schedule when I was a senior because I didn't need to take all these hard classes, so I took the easy way out. And I took, one of them was typing, and that thing was, I viewed it as kind of a joke at the time, because basically it was girls that took this class, but man, that thing's paid off. I know how to type, like actually type, not some bastardized version of. I know how to sit down at a computer and type like a real typist, because of that class. But in that class, they had a combination of. They had a few electric typewriters, which was the ones you wanted. You wanted to try to get one of those. And then they had a whole bunch of manual typewriters. You ever try to type on one of those things? Those old, like from the, you see those movies from the 40s and stuff, and they're in there going, like a cigarette dangling off their lip, some kind of news reporter or something. And you ever try to actually use one of those things? You have to, it's a wonder I didn't have to have Tommy John surgery or something after using those things. You had to pound down with all 10 of your fingers. It took great force to get it to work, And that's what they had. That's how long ago it was. It was a different world. There's two different worlds. I lived in two different worlds. And now it's insane. Nobody even knows what a typewriter is or how to use one. And you couldn't erase anything. You had to use like liquid paper. What the? Just think about that. If you needed to make some kind of correction, you had to paint over you had to use you had to paint the paper and then retype it over it's insane. But that was I'm glad I took that class. I can actually type. I still get comments on how fast I can type and stuff, and it's accurate. It's because of that class I took back in 1980 or whatever it was. That thing was That was That was a good one, you know. So anyway, that's everything I had written down. There's millions others, and if you guys have anything from when you lived in a different, if you're roughly the same age as me, you probably have a whole bunch of bizarre, obscure memories too. Everybody just says the rotary phone and all this. I'm talking about the stuff. Dig down a little bit deeper, a little bit weirder, a little bit more obscure. You know, like the Pepsi bottle with the flower dribble nozzle on it, or the little white dot in the middle of the TV screen. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. If you have anything, please share it. Call me up. 570-290-8151 is the number. In fact, we have a call that came over from our old buddy Wisey in T-Town, and here it is.
Jeff, Wisey in T-Town. Hope all is well. I should know. They just swept my rate. Yeah, little payback there, but anyhow. Best midnight movie, Dawn of the Dead, the original. Awesome midnight movie. The other thing I was going to comment on is, you know, I mentioned that our life coincides quite a bit. You know, you worked at Fast Check. I worked at Indiana Street Grocery in high school. Fucking loved it. It was, you know, working in a grocery store is the greatest when you're in high school. So many things you can get into, and but we had a meat market that was the meat market in Indiana Street Grocery ran about 70% of the back wall of our store, and they had these sliding windows. Typically, the butcher could slide the window, put the meat in, and then slide the window back. But if you turn the lights off in the meat market, you could see out into the store, but you couldn't see in. So we had a call sign. I can't remember what it was. It was, you know, we get on the intercom, you know, price check on Badger-Clean or something like that. That was the sign. There's a good-looking woman in the store, and we would all go back in the meat market, turn the light off. Even the butcher would turn the light off, and we'd all stay back there and just stare at these good-looking women as they, you know, as they shop through the store, just hoping they'd come back and you know, start perusing the meat. So, anyhow, I could go on and on about all the good stories there. So, anyhow, brought back some good memories. Take care, Jeff. Keep up the good work. See ya.
You're right. Dawn of the Dead is one of the best. I took a girl to see. I love Dawn of the Dead. That is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. That is one of the best. I mean, I haven't seen them all because I'm not a giant nerd, but I've seen many of the zombie films, and you know, Night of the Living Dead's classic, but Dawn of the Dead, that thing's in a class of its own as far as I'm concerned, like the best. I took a girl to see Dawn of the Dead at a midnight movie back in those days, back in the Dunbar days. And she started crying within, I don't know, first 15 minutes of the movie. So we left, right? She was upset. She was crying. We were driving back. I think it was like, I don't know. I don't remember where it was at. It was like, it seems like the movie theater was in Taze Valley or something. They used to have movie theaters down there, like down in that area. But anyway, we were driving back to Dunbar. She was sobbing, and she was like, "Why? Why would you take me to see a movie such as that? You know, I just don't understand. Why would you do that? That's like the worst thing I've ever seen." It was like the whole premise was hell was full, so the dead who are destined for hell are now walking the earth. That's the premise. That's a great date movie, right? I mean, I think it is. Maybe I might have miscalculated on that one a little bit. But anyway, she was sobbing and like, why? Why? For what reason? What would possess a person to think that they, you know? But anyway, I love it. That thing's out of print too. I found a bootleg copy of it. It's really good quality. It's very difficult to find. It's never on any streaming services, and the DVD is hard to find. And if you find one, a legitimate copy, it's very expensive. I think I have a bootleg. I think I have a copy of a copy. But it's good. It's decent. I don't know. But you're right. It's a great one. And that grocery store story, that sounds right. That sounds right, you know. I remember when I worked, this is probably not exactly PC. I mean, I hope I don't offend anybody. But I remember when I first started working at Peaches in Greensboro, and people weren't very friendly to me there at the very beginning. There were cliques. There was groups of people that had been working there for a long time, and they weren't, generally speaking, they weren't very friendly to me, right? And there were a couple of exceptions, including my friend Brad, who I'm still friends with to this day. He was decent to me, but some of the oldsters, the ones that have been there a long time, they had this haughty, above-it-all attitude, and who are you to talk to us? We are the lofty ones. You are a mere upstart, fresh off the street. You are not a seasoned record store employee. You know, it was just like this attitude. And but I remember, you know, and it bugged me. I didn't like being treated that way. But what are you gonna do? I loved working there. I wanted to get my foot in the door. It took me a long time. So I was rolling with it, you know. And I remember one morning before the store opened, it was similar to your story, where we're if there's a good-looking woman coming into the store. So there were three of us. It was me, Brad, and some other guy, and the other guy wasn't very friendly. He was one of the ones that wasn't very friendly. I can't remember his name. I think he had a mustache. But we were talking, and I wasn't involved in this, but they were talking. Those two were talking. Brad and the other guy, old mustache Johnny, were talking about, you know, if a pretty blonde comes in the store, I get to help them. You know, they're like calling it. You know, if a pretty blonde comes in, you know, you guys back off. It's me. That's me. I'm handling all the pretty blondes today, right? And then the other one was like, well, I'll take the brunettes. You know, that kind of thing. And then they said, would you know? I was quiet, and I was kind of staying off to myself because they weren't welcoming me in with open arms. But Brad, who was more decent than the rest of them, probably, I can't remember details, but he probably said, "Jeff, you want in on this?" And I said, okay, this is the non-PC part. Well, none of it's very PC, but I said, yeah, put me down for all the lesbian dwarves. Right? And Brad like buckled over in laughter, and the other guy was like, what the hell? You know, he's like, what the hell's that? You know, and but Brad, you know, he immediately got my sense of humor, and you know, and we're friends to this day. You know, I don't know how many years that is, mid '80s to now. So anyway, yeah, put me down for lesbian dwarves. That was like literally my first few days of working at Peaches. But anyway, yeah, I can understand that. We had that place was insane. Fast Check. I mean, it was crazy. The stuff that happened in there, I could do. My friend Steve said you could do 10 episodes of your podcast with just Fast Check stories. Yeah, it's true. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun working at a grocery store. You're right. You know, we got treated like shit. We didn't get paid anything. They called us numbnuts, shit for brains, all that stuff. Management treated us like trash. But we had fun. We ran crazy through that place. My friend Rocky, I don't want to start going off on Fast Check stories. But you know how they used to put missing children's faces on the side of milk cartons? That's another weird. There you go. Missing children on the side of milk cartons. The hell's that? Where'd that come from? Anyway, my friend Rocky worked there. He wrote one time he went over there with a Sharpie and wrote "dead" across some kid's face, right, on some of the cartons, and then just put them back on the shelf. And this woman gets up there, and she's getting ready to pay, and she realizes, she sees that, she notices it, It has like something, I don't know, 6th grader on the side of there. It's been missing for like 3 years. And it just says dead across his face. And the woman like flipped out and she was like freaking out. She said, "This is so disrespectful." Blah, 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 blah. And the management had to talk to us, yelled at us, It was so much fun. You're right. It was fun. I don't know if I realized how fun it was while it was going on, but when I think back on it, it was a pretty good experience. Thanks for calling in, Wisey. I appreciate it. And like I said, if you guys want to call in, like Wisey did, you can do it, 570-290-8151. If you want 2 episodes a week instead of a measly one, you can do that too. Head on over to Patreon. That's Patreon, patreon.com/JeffK. Sign up for a $4 or more monthly donation, and you'll get an extra episode every week. So do it up. Double down on the Surf Report. And surfreportpod.com is the home for expanded show notes, links, photographs, pictures, blah, blah, blah. Photographs and pictures, We don't limit it to just photographs, but we also have pictures. So anyway, head on over to surfreportpod.com. And thank you guys for listening. I do appreciate it. I know it's a little erratic, but there's trouble. There's trouble at the House of K. But I'm hoping everything will be calm. I hope everything will be okay in the long run. Thank you guys for sticking with me. And until next time, which will be over on the Patreon side, you guys have yourselves a fine, fine day. I'll see you. Bye. We are the lofty ones.